at them again. I have my special guest, Chuck Morgan, aka the Nuwaupian Killer. All right, 2021 Beast Master, undisputed champion of the anti-York, nasty, butt-naked, bunky, gay alien cult. All right, everybody knows this man cannot be beat. His website is still standing, shining, and glistening like some 20-inch rims that just came out. All right, so without further ado, go ahead, Chuck, let them know what time it is and what we here for.
All right, brother, I appreciate you all giving me this time and coming back again. It seems like any time that we step away, we turn the lights off, here come the roaches out again. So we come back with that raid to spray them again. So anything but, because as I've always been saying, as in the late, because I don't talk about the guy that much at this time, is that in 2021, York is pretty much irrelevant. So what we have is just a bunch of upset, disgruntled, irritated, agitated cult members who just feel the need to want to continue the long, drawn-out, circular argument that has been addressed in 2004, 5, 6, 7, all the way up until 19, and here we go back to 2021. So these things, nothing new has been brought forward, anything that I found. All I hear is just a bunch of people still angry and want to have some type of argument about old stories or issues that's already been addressed. And as far as anybody debunking Nuwaupianism.com, I mean, anybody can say they can debunk this or that, but it all comes down to substance. So one of the terms or one of the phrases we use is documentation beats conversation. And my website is well documented with the documentation. We have the evidence. We have map, charts, diagrams. We have excerpts from transcripts, and et cetera, et cetera. So anybody claiming that they're going to debunk anything, and you're going to have to do a whole lot of debunking because there's a lot of information up there. And then that information has to be sound. But ultimately, nothing that I say or anyone else says is going to change the reality. Malachi York is in prison. He will be there for the rest of his life. And I'm not talking 76 trillion years. I'm talking about the duration of the average human, which he was. So all that other stuff about him having 76 trillion years and that he, as a Riskian, that they were able to conquer death. None of that stuff is going to change because it's all irrelevant. So one of the things that I always quote from York is, you are in control of your emotions. You are responsible for whatever happens to you. You are always where you are supposed to be. That's from the Holy Tablets, chapter 7, chapter 10, 32, and 57. And that, wherever York is right now, hey, that's where he's supposed to be. So that's my point on that. So yeah, Nuwaupianism.com with the various categories. Any individual that wants to have facts as they are and the evidence to support whatever I said, because anything that I'm bringing is going to always be matched with the evidence. It's not going to be hearsay. It's not going to be something that someone else said. This is the quote from York himself, be it audio, video, publication, and it is intended for the audience to consume, and they decide how they want to view the information. I'm not trying to force anything. All I do is present it as something of a report. And so I'm presenting the facts as they stand, and to date, other than rhetoric, nothing or no one has really come with anything that's been able to refute the presentations that's presented at Nuwaupianism.com.
Facts. Up to date, it hasn't been done. I don't know how many threats you done received that they was gonna do something with it. I think the last Joker that said something was it was Malachi Disciple and the Kinoo dude. So other than that, they may go at 1 or 2 posts, but then they abandon the jar every single time.
Right.
So let's get to what actually brought us here, and which is very important. Just give me a second. I'm about to share my screen. Bring this up. I got so many windows open. We got a lot. We got to address. Okay, this is wrong. We got too many screens open. Hold on. This one. This one. No, maybe this one. All right, here we go. Let's get to it. Share my screen. Let me know when you can see it. Can you see it? I can't hear you, Chuck.
Yeah, I see it. I got you.
Okay, cool. All right. So this is Brother Kinoo, who called himself the real Nuwaupian. He was on Sarnetta February 13, 2021. So this is about a book that was put out talking about a few people, including Chuck and myself and a few others. So what we wanted to do is just listen to the part that's relevant, which mentions us, and so we're gonna go into that real quick. So this is probably gonna play like maybe 2 minutes or so. That's all we need.
Garfield, we got a whole section in there against the slander. That's why I say we setting the record straight on the slander, and it goes in details about the case. I like to, if you don't mind, like to share my screen real quick.
So you said that Garfield is in the book?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hey, they in the book. Garfield's in the book. Hawkins in the book. Chuck Morgan's in the book.
Yeah. Hey, well, at least there's some kind of book that's attached to Garfield, because I ain't seen this book come out yet. Shot fired.
Wow, have mercy. Where's the book at, Garfield? I was actually looking forward to reading that book that Garfield never came out with. But let me share my screen real quick and show you. Okay, here we go. Sharing. Okay. This is the link to Amazon on the book. It's called Lightning from the East. All right, it's a paperback edition. It's only $28.99. It is huge. And in the front of the book, this is my name up here. Okay, can you see it now?
No, sir, you gotta share your screen.
Okay, I'm sharing mine. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Okay, here we go. You see it now?
Con.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is my name up in the left upper hand corner of the book. Kinoo Amun Min Ray. And I did an interview, like an introduction to the book, and it's a part 2 to the Man of Many Faces. And we also have a tribute to Prodigy from Mobb Deep in the book. So because people know about how Dr. York and the Nubian Nation and the Ansars and the Nation of Islam and all them had a strong hold in the hip hop community, especially in the early 80s. So we got the big shout out to my brother Teffa, Adapter to Hawk and Nicole L, Big shout out to the University Yoruba Nation and the Nuwaupian Nation. And big shout out to Prodigy. Rest in peace to Prodigy Amadi, man. So this book is explaining in detail. I'm just going to read a little bit from the introduction. It says, this publication has been re-edited and readapted as a follow-up to the 2005 groundbreaking publication, Man of Many Faces, Part 1 and 2, Uncovering the Truth About Dr. Malachi Z. York by Yvonne Christensen. In light of the ongoing events surrounding the imprisoned Nuwaupian leader, Dr. Malachi Z. York, as well as the continued campaign of slander, misinformation, character assassination against him, such as the recent slanderous and historically inaccurate People magazine Investigate documentary Cults, right, which I'm sure a lot of people seen, season 1, episode 6, entitled The Nuwaupian Nation of Moors. And that aired on Discovery Channel July 6, 2018. We did a full rebuttal. We showed you where these people literally on the Discovery Channel, literally live. Okay? A point-for-point rebuttal to that. It says, additionally, the new controversy surrounding the true identity of Afro Unu. We addressing the Noonie Boos, Ta Noon. We addressing all that. And the scandal of Africa Bambado's homosexual allegations have compelled us, as the co-authors and contributors of the Man of Many Faces book, to revise, re-examine the true history and life of Malachi York from a much deeper biographical perspective in order to once and for all set the record straight. So that is what the book is about. Right there, Sonetta, you will be getting a free copy of that book, my brother.
We're almost done. We're almost done,
sir.
Chuck.
Go ahead.
Can you explain why dozens of women and their many family members have given detailed accounts of sexual abuse committed on them by Dr. Malachi Z. York? Can you explain that? These women that came out and accused Dr. York of doing these.
All right, so this one I'm gonna stop it at, but you can see, Chuck, you down at the bottom on the left. He got Garfield right there. He has me right here. He got and he has Tazariak at the bottom. Above that, go ahead.
That looks like that's a whole lot of photos. I think that is in design in part to try to sell the idea of the book, because you know you always got to try to clout chase individuals that you hold in high esteem. I would suspect. So to help the sales on a book that didn't go anywhere, I guess you have to build some type of controversy and put up individuals that you find as being. And just think about slander. Like I said, everything that I present is based on the words of York. It's based on his teachings, his doctrine, etc. So I think that when they've taken this term slander, derived from the book from York, the answer called Rebuttal to the Slanderers.
Right.
And so it's a very endearing term for them, and it gives them the spirit to feel that they are working on behalf of the cult leader. It's similar to the people who have the ideology of gloom and doom, and so they're speaking on behalf of their God, and then they'll perform acts such as bombings or terroristic acts, because their motivation is to work on behalf of their God, who is a powerless God.
Right.
And so because York is their God, and he's powerless at this point because he's incarcerated and will be until he dies, they feel that the use of slander is going to be a motivator to give them that feeling within that they've done something, they're helping him. When he had his chance, he had his legal team, they had their chance to defend him, and they lost. York could have taken a stand. Remember, York is the one who told you on numerous videos back in 97, 98, where he talked about how to walk into a court, what to say, etc. So he being the essence of of the great debater. Remember, he is supposed to be the manifestation of perfection in flesh, as many of the cult members would say. So to go up against the opposition, who was a black man, the prosecutor, the lead prosecutor, he could have easily taken a stand and articulated his point, position, and set the record straight. But of course he didn't, which said a lot. So nearly 20 years later, you have individuals that never even met him. Because I've always told even some of the victims, I've told them that his staunchest supporters or defenders are people that have never even met him or never lived within an organization under him. And that says a lot unto itself as well. So there's no slander. What's documented is what's being presented. And anyone can go online and check it because the documentation speaks for itself. Nuwaupianism.com, of course, presents that in no uncertain terms and clears up a lot of that misinformation. So all I'm doing is just giving the people the information, and then they can decide whether they want to accept it or not. Because there has to be a counter argument. Because all along, up until around 2011, they controlled the narrative, which was anything that he said by way of the audio of Isle of Patmos, that series. Anything he said, that was it. There was no challenge to it. But since Nuwaupianism.com came on the scene, as far as things pertaining to the case, people have a better working knowledge of what actually took place. And so I try to share with the audience things that was presented in the courts that ultimately led to the jury convicting him. And that's just the way it is. It's not going to change it. Nothing I say is going to make it better. It's not going to make it worse. So, as far as I see it, it's just that people, again, are just upset and they got their little feelings hurt because the website and then a book that's being derived from the website is already in the works and should be available soon, because I want to make sure that even if the website is not around anymore after I'm gone, there'll be a series of volumes of the information that will be perpetual. So it'll never end. So Nuwaupianism.com will continue on years and years and years afterwards. Because as any cult, you're going to always have some fool that's going to continue to follow. And as a result, cults continue on. Just like, remember, York claimed to that he was coming to break the cross and he was going to shut down the Sunni Muslims and the Christians and everybody else. But nothing changed. He got some points across. Some people converted, diverted, moved on. Nothing's changed. Christianity is just as strong today as it was when York was on the street. Islam is just as strong. And all the other groups that he had claimed that he was coming to destroy or break in half. But nothing has changed. But currently, he sits in a prison and his organization is just in splinter groups. They're just a number of denominations like any other religious organization. So this is really what it is. Really, all that it is just a set of denominations within the organization that decides to take a little bit here and a little bit there, and then they're going to move on and say this is the right way, just like all the other religious denominations. So Nuwaupianism and any other name they want to use to get away from the reality is still the same. Another religious organization that is currently in 2021 a set of religious denominations.
With no power.
No power whatsoever.
And low reasonability. All right, so the point I wanted to make was the fact that he's calling himself the real Nuwaupian, and that in itself is a problem. And I wanted to deal with that real quick, and then we'll jump into some other stuff. I won't tarry too long, as they say. Did my screen change or was it still the same?
You have Nuwaupian, and I'm a Nuwaupian.
Cool. All right, now this is a post I did back in March 10th, 2016 in our group. And so we're going to go by what York said first. It said, inquire Nuwaupians, how could York change the nationality of Nubian to Caucasian after he said the root word of Nuwaupu applied to African people? How can Caucasians be Nuwaupian or Nubian by race? This is ridiculous. So I took the book, Nuwaupu and Amanubi Rockpatah, Fact to Fiction, and it pointed out when he broke down the word Nubuwa, which means prophethood, prophecy. Nubuwa also can be found in Aramaic Hebrew, Nubuwa, a prediction teaching from the root word Nub, to sprout forth to germinate. Nubian, which is cuneiform, means before the light, presenter of news. Nubuwa can be found in the Quran 379, 680, and 89, 29, 27, 45, 16, 57, 26. So he's taking this all the way back to Arabic because that's a language that he spoke. Even though he mentioned Nubia or Nubian and all of us, which is a whole nother race of our people in Sudan, they had their own language. So why he's running with Arabic, people never picked that up. We didn't pick that up back then. So now go to the next thing. The Nubian, right, is a plural now. Nubians, a native or inhabitant of what? Nubia. That's not Saudi. All right. The Nilo-Saharan language of the Nubians, a goat or short-haired breed with long pendant ears, long ears, originally from Africa. So Nubian, all that stuff goes back to Africa, right? This is a depiction of some of the Nubians in ancient Kemet art. All right. So you have Nubian again. Okay, that's the same thing. So I brought all that up to say this: there's no way this guy here, just by the definition of the word, can be a Nuwaupian. But look at this, he don't even have kinky hair. Look, he's mixed. That's the first thing. He's part Caucasian and maybe have a black father. I don't really know. You know anything about this dude as far as his lineage?
No, I don't know anything about him.
Right, so just according to that alone, he's disqualified. You're not a Nuwaupian because it goes back to a language. All right, so then just to kill everything else, the reason why they changed their name from Nuwaupian to Nuwaupian, one, because York changed the letter from P, because in the original writings, the Bible Interpretation and Explanation 1 and 2, in book 1, at the very end, the last topic is what is Nuwaupu. It's Nuwaupu. There's no B there. York corrupted it into Nuwaupian and then started playing this game with Nuwaupian and all this stuff and Nubuwa, and he created his own terminology. So this is way back then, and like you pointed out, Chuck, he didn't start claiming Amanubi Rockpatah writings until 1990. So from that point, before all of the books he ever written, he never claimed that he wrote the Bible interpretation, all this. Only till you get into the 90s, then he started doing his foolishness. And he had already wrote.
Well, see, that was the point that I was making, because if you want to go to a book that deals with a complete bibliography of his teachings and philosophies, or going all the way back to his inception as a teacher or as a cult leader, you're not going to find the term mentioned anywhere. And that was always my challenge to Nuwaupians, to show where York mentions Nuwaupu on any level, the way that he up until the 1990s, because prior to the 1990s, you don't hear anything about it. So that and my challenge to them has always been to produce a book that he wrote, because they like to say that in 1967, that was when he was teaching. No, but then give me a year, because we know that he was incarcerated in 1967. And according to the rebuttal to the slanderers, the Ansar cult, nowhere in that publication is that term mentioned, nor is there any mention of Bible interpretation and explanations, nine-ball, what is Nuwaupian? None of that stuff is mentioned. So all of the stuff is post-1967 information. This is post-1990 new doctrine that was coming up on the scene at the time.
He's calling because the right knowledge.
As he was moving out of trying to get away from the stigma of Islam, because remember he said that either y'all are gonna get out of Islam and stop pretending. He was saying that to Sunni Muslims, and particularly to Bilal Phillips and Salah Wahajan, what they would have come forward in regards to he and his cult. By him saying that you're going to get out of Islam and stop pretending, it just flipped the script, because then he was the one who stepped out of Islam and stopped pretending. Remember the audio, why we used Islam, because he said that Islam was one of the dumbest religions that was unchecked, unverified, and unresearched, paraphrasing. And that was how he was able to comfortably slide up in it. And remember, he said that from there he was able to build a cult. Those are his words. I built a cult. Let me see if I can pull that up, because I want to be able to quote him as to what he said in regards to that. He says, how would I create a cult that would isolate itself from everybody? The Sunnis would leave us alone. The Nation of Islam would leave us alone. The Christians would leave us alone. And the Israelites and Hebrews would leave us alone. I said, well, the first thing is the symbol needs to be different. And if you go on, he said, take a 6-pointed star and crescent and an that'll work. Call them the Nubian Islamic Hebrews. That'll work. So the scene was set. As I went through these different stages, I changed my name every 2 years to keep the attention off of me. That is from Why We Use Islam, the audio. So that is the point. He needed to, as a hustle, he used Islam as a hustle, a vehicle, because that was something that was rising, coming out of the 1960s with the whole Black Power empowerment movement and the Nation of Islam and all these different, everything was centered around Black. So he just was able to slide up under Islam and come out with his version of it, which if you go back to that period when after the Bilal Phillips' book comes out, and he leaves Islam and starts to go into another direction, he starts to attack Islam on every angle, and from 360 questions to ask the Orthodox Sunni Muslims. The religion of Islam is the Antichrist religion, and a whole series that during that period he just went completely hog on attacking Islam. Something that was supposed to be right and exact, and then come back and say, oh no, it was a school. But anyone that lived through that period knows that he was very passionate about the anger that he felt against Bilal Phillips, and that book that blew the lid off of the organization in ways that had never been done before. And that was one of the reasons why he packed up and left Islam. So bringing it up to today, yeah, they had to change their name because there's so much baggage associated with the term Nuwaupian.
There you go. And that's the perfect thing to do, because nobody questioned it, and we talked about that a lot as well. Afroon did his thing. He didn't, he was too intelligent to be trying to go against a whole cult and a leader that lived in the same area you did business in.
And I'm not to cut you off, but in conjunction with that, remember, because you know how we always had, well, as Ansars or the Nuwaupians at the time, we always had to do a play on words. It was all about word play. Mm-hmm. So whenever we, like, you know, whole thing about cult and culture, and all this other stuff. Just like we can take words that had a root and then we have multiple derivatives of that. Mm-hmm. So when he said, well, here he is, a culture, he's talking about a culture. You know, we know what he was meaning when he was talking about a cult. Right. Just like in the degree of Mohammedanism, on page 4, he says, overstand. We didn't want to be associated with any form of Islamic cult or sect. So Ansars, you'll always say that Ansars are alone in their sorrows. So as he was teaching, he didn't want to be associated with all the other sects. And so he didn't want to classify himself as being a part of a cult as when we were Muslim. But of course, as time went on, and while we use Islam, he comes out and he taught us this in class, is that, yeah, he said it himself that he had to form a cult. He didn't say a culture. He's talking about a cult, the term that we use today as being an organization. Well, let's see what York said in Secret Societies Unmasked, page 2. York said, in explaining what a cult is, cult, a system of religious worship or ritual, devoted attachment to an extravagant admiration for a person, principle, etc. We regard it as a fad. He says that the object of such attachment, a group of followers, sect. Secret Societies Unmasked, page 2. So all of these other little add-ons, they have to come after York to try to assist him when he, being the wisest man on the planet, as they're told, he doesn't need to be cleared up because his own writings were supposed to clear all that. But that's another story. Right. So I just wanted to add that part in.
Cool. So we got that part down because, like you said, all this extended from the claiming Nuwaupian Rock Matar's writing, we know, was Afro. We did all the due diligence search for years. It's on record, it's on video, it's in our group. We all did that. So now the other part about Nuwaupian is that when Nuke did the research, went into the Sesh Metaneta, and he found that the word Nuwaupian actually went back to the Kemet word for gold, which was Noob. And he broke that down. I got it. This is from the video. It's called Nuwaupian Revisited. He broke it down before this, then put it on his page in 2016. Nuwaupians stole it and then put it in a book, and then they presented the book when Prince York was doing that fake battle with Jabari in his home, and he pulled the book out and showed it. And so I took that clip and put it in one of these videos, and we showed how they was stealing it, and they tried to say, oh yeah, Nuwaupian meant gold. When you look at the books that York wrote, at least on Nuwaupian, Fact or Fiction, What is Nuwaupian, and all of that, he keeps telling you the same definition. It goes back to cuneiform and Arabic. That's what he said. He never mentioned throughout all the years of Nuwaupian writing down the series that the word had any connection with ancient Kemet or the hieroglyphs or the Sesh Metaneta, none of that stuff. Everybody who's been around, who's been in the game long like we have, they'll tell you that there's no such thing that was ever done. But now, when you go and look into their books, that's dated like 2018 forward, you'll find that. And so this is what they do. So I brought that up just to put it on record, is that what this guy's saying, number one, according to your definition, you're not a Nuwaupian because you're not black, right? You're not part of the African race, meaning having full kinky hair. That's the true definition of being, that's a universal marker for all black people, is having that kinky hair. He could be partially black as far as that, but as far as Nuwaupian goes, Nuwaupian isn't a person. it goes back into sunshine and gold and the sun god Ra or Ra. Simple and plain. So that smashes him out of the water. So now the whole thing is, how did we get here though? Before I jump into that, I just want to make sure. Did you want to add anything before we go to the next phase?
No, I'm good.
All right. So how we got here? Because I had the book Man of Many Faces, and when I read the book Man of Many Faces, is when I seen Afro Unu's name in there, but they kept spelling it wrong, like they've been doing. You know, instead of having AFROOOONO, they just had AFROONO. And so when I seen that, I said, let me get in contact with the author. So this is the email that I sent to him about what I read. All right, and this is what I sent to the actual author, Pablo Blake. All right, wait, let me go back. This is him responding to me. Hold on, let me go back. I'm sorry. All right, here's my email. I'm sorry. All right, so here, I'm sending. This is me sending this to him. All right, it said, listen to reason. Greetings, Mr. Yoba Christensen. My name is Tarnoon Nupu James West. I had a chance to review your book, The Man of Many Faces, back in 2010. At the time, I was under the impression that Mr. York had written under many names. I was in Nuwaupian at that time, 1995 to 2010, because this drug addict crackhead, rogue Nuwaupian Garu keeps telling people I was in Nuwaupian all the way up to 2017. I'm like, why you keep telling these lies? You know, it's like they're not credible. That's why I really don't like paying them no attention, because if you can't keep simple things in order, then you delusional. You understand? Just keep lying about stuff. I'm very accurate, just like you, Chuck. I always keep dates and times lined up, because when you're trying to help people find their way, that's the best thing you could do, is be honest and correct about the information you're putting out there. We've been doing this for too long for us to have gotten this far if our works wasn't right and airtight. All right?
Right.
All right, so, and you had a name in particular that stood out, which was Afro Unu. Right? So if you look right here, this has come out of the book, and you'll see Afro Unu name right over here on the Rabboni Yahshua Bar El Hadi. You see Afro Unu. AFROOONO. Right? So I took a screenshot of his book and put it in this document and sent it to him. All right? Mm-hmm. And then I said, let me say here that after reading the nature books in 2008, I was convinced Mr. York authored these books. So I started writing Mr. York and questioning him about the nature books and the actual fact books his followers were putting out. And his response were contradictory and misleading. Here's a letter Mr. York wrote me in 2009 where he led me to believe he was indeed Afro Unu and proceeded to explain what the name Afro Unu meant as well. Then later in the same letter, he then separated himself from Afro Unu by asking me to ask Afro Unu about the language that the nature of nature and the words contained that it came from. This created confusion after he had said what the name Afro Unu meant. Definitely made it look like he was hinting he was Afro Unu. Let me explain what prompted Mr. York to ask Afro Unu where did the language Newport, Noon, etc. came from. I wrote this letter to Mr. York in July/August of 2009 explaining how a friend of mine, Sheikh El Lord Abba, found that the Nuwaupian language Mr. York claimed he was resurrected from older African languages had Phoenician letters in there. As you read my letter, it's clear I thought Mr. York wrote the nature books judging by the topics and writing in certain cases. So this was just me writing to him about the nature, and this is what I was saying, And
okay.
All right, so I'm skipping through that. And this is me saying that. So then he wrote me back, because what he used to do is when I write him, I'll make a copy of it and kept the original letter. And then when he write me back, he would write at the bottom.
Okay.
So I knew that was him. And see, I was in the Bronx at the time, so you can see he wrote peace and love and freedom and put my Egyptian name he gave me in the order at the time. Right, so we got James West of Bronx, New York. All right. So then this is the letter right here. You remember he used to write his name and stuff and put H.E. Dr. Malachi and all that stuff like that. So here I'm just writing. It said, below is what Mr. York asked me to ask Afro-Uno. Cause see right here in the letter said, well, he said, Consul, well, if that was funny, then how about he said, how about the nature of nature goes back to when we wore afros in the 60s. Unu meant the time of the processed hair. So that's what he was telling me. So again, if you was reading this from my standpoint, you thinking, cool, okay, you telling me what the name means, so because I'm thinking that's him. All right. Then he says, hey, you check to see which language the nature inscribers speak, and of which tongue Nupu and Noon, Nupu, Zupu, and know the word Sabiism as being a part of the science Noon. Now the book is written in English, number one. So him saying that, knowing he had the books, because Wu Jiao had already told me that York asked him to send him the nature books in completion in 2006. So he had the books. So him asking me that made no sense. But what the Nuwaupians and Sabians missed is this. This is when York was already crafting his Sabiism thing all the way back then. It just took him a while to come up with a plan on how to do it. Because see here, it's being a part of the science Noon. Sabiism now look back at Sabian. See, they got the word Sabian. That word Sabian is not in the nature book. Sabianism is. ISM, which is dealing with worshiping the stars or giving star worship. So York he couldn't find information on Sabiism, so he used Sabian, which is close to this, because me and Earl got into it, and I showed Earl, but York took that in the actual facts and plagiarized this whole section out of the nature books and tried to turn it into what he said it was, which is Arabic and all this other stuff. So anyway, he said an extinct Semitic language once spoken in Saba, the Bible Sheba in southern Arabia, originally called Arubu, when Yoruba comes in. Check it out. So that's the only thing he could come up. He couldn't find nothing on Sabian, and that's why he did that. It's 2009, but they start calling themselves Sabian in like 2017, 18, once we beat them to death and showed where the word Nuwaupu came from. Once Anu did that solidified it, and that's when Nuwaupian assassin them was like, oh, y'all can have the word Nuwaupu. No, y'all got exposed, your teacher got exposed, and y'all had books that was already concrete written over 10 years ago that y'all can't change the definition. The books is out there, so that's how they got caught. All right, so that's pretty much what I did with that. So now, let me see, did I write anything else? Let me see, make sure I got everything. I think that was it. All right, so I gave him all that information. I even sent him more information from your site and everything about him claiming to be this, that, and the third, and he had a jail record and all this other stuff. So Mr. Yevon, let me see, responded to me. This is the email. All right, said, dear Mr. Tarnoon, James West, first of all, thank you for your illuminating letter. We were aware of many of the issues you outlined concerning Mr. York in regards to the works and influence of the said individual named Afro-Uno. Now, this issue of Afro-Uno being mentioned in our publication, The Man of Many Faces, has been one which has caused much controversy over the years. Nevertheless, to answer your question, first of all, at no point did York ever consult or work with us either during or after the development of our book. That's the first mistake. Secondly, no, Mr. York did not read the book until after its release, as we understand a copy of it was taken to him by one of his followers in prison. All right, another mistake. Thirdly, from reports which came to us, Mr. York was said to have been satisfied with most of the contents of the book, but however did express some irritation at being referred to as Afro-Uno, which we did take into consideration at the time. Now this is a lie, because I wrote him prior in 2009. And then we got letters that Wuja and them gave us that we put into our group dating back to 2006, asking him about Afro-Uno, and he was acting like, y'all with me, I don't know who wrote the books. Now this is somebody who claimed you got 76 trillion years of knowledge, you can tell us what happened billions of years ago, and Pluto got blew up and it was a big head scientist, all this old crap. But you can't tell me about somebody in your lifetime. You don't know who the writer is. So again, this is all lies. All right. Fourth, in regards to Mr. York being accused of statutory rape, yes, we were aware of this and have covered the issue of in-depth in the revised edition of our publication released in 2013. So he had to revise the book. All right. Fifth, although I'm not, nor have ever been a follower or affiliate of the Nuwaupian Creed, my co-author, remember this here, co-author, and lead researcher are affiliates and supporters of the movement, and were under the impression as followers of the movement and subscribers to Mr. York's literature that he in fact was Amanubi Rakwatar and did use the name before 1990 during this 1968, which you already proved, and we wouldn't found the evidence that he was not using that name prior to 1990. So the guy that Mr. Yevon was relying on as his top researcher was telling a lie, because they didn't know. They believe York was using that name, but there's no written publications from York's own camp that ever used, he was claiming Amanubi before 1990. So that's a lie.
Right.
So Mr. Jefferson or whoever this is lying or repeating a lie, rather, that he was using this. But if you, again, which we unprove that, it's no publications that says that. All right, which is why this detail was mentioned in our book, along with mention that Mr. York was the author of the Bible interpretation and explanation in the Noun Ball, which we told was a lie, in 1968 under the title Amanubi Rakwatar. Number one, that's a lie. Number two, the Noun Balls came out in 1971 and 1972. So how are they writing these books is in 68? That's a lie. But again, this shows you that he's relying on liars that's listening to a liar. This is why his book had all these problems in it. All right, so we keep going. 6, at no point were we informed either during or after the development of our publication that Mr. York was or is the physical referred to as Afro-Uno. However, as the identity of Afro-Uno remained, again, these is all types of lies, remain hidden, and Mr. York's teachings have over the years been closely associated with his work, leading many to assume, right, even myself at the time, right, that he was indeed Afro-Uno. But he knew because people were saying stuff to York ever since. Because York started claiming Amanubi's name in 1990. Afro-Uno's Nature book started coming out 93, 95, and 96. So those years in the 90s when York was still in New York, he heard this and he never clarified that wasn't him. Because he had ample opportunity to say that those writings are mine, and somebody put them out, which they were saying too. They was telling us that some women from overseas was putting the books together in the office, and York put the books out overseas. It was all type of stuff, I started gathering as we started doing due diligence. So again, York had ample opportunity to say and check that back then. He did not. Why? Because he's an egomaniac and a liar. And so he's not, and a narcissist. He's not going to throw away some extra credit he didn't earn to put on him and shine. All right? Afro-Uno's name at the beginning of the book to draw reference to the fact that Mr. York has been associated with Afro-Uno and therefore thought by some to be him, as not all of the names of the long list were York's actual names, but names which he has come to be associated with, such as Makdi and known by over the years. All them names York gave himself. That's a lie. All right. 7, certain adherents to the Nuwaupian right knowledge philosophy have informed our researchers that they thought Mr. York was Afro-Uno. See, again, he's telling you that even though he's saying earlier he just said that during the making of the book and finishing, they was never informed that they was not the same. But here he says they was informed that they thought Mr. York was Afro-Unu. That's a contradiction, which is why his name was added to the list of the names associated with Yorks. But why would y'all do that if you have no? When you writing a book and you supposed to be a credible book writer, why would you enlist a name that y'all are not sure who's behind it? You understand? If you trying to make sure you writing everything sound all the way through, that was his mistake. No one has ever shown us proof that Mr. York was Afro-Unu, and they didn't show y'all proof he wasn't either, but you still put the man's name in the book. Other than the literature which resembled yours writing, so what? If you don't know for a fact, that name should have never been in there. Just off of being credible, if you trying to be a credible writer. Ninth, as previously stated, the name Afro-Unu was added to the list of names of York because it was associated with to highlight the fact that too many people in the public, Mr. York teachings have in the past been connected to the works of Afro-Unu through the name Amadou Rakapatar, hence the titles of the book, The Man of Many Faces. I got all of that, but still, you don't put something there with the names. What you do is you put that somewhere else in the book, or separate from that, so we are highlighting this name because we're not sure who this person is, but these writings are similar. He listed them with that. And I got letters with York never debunking who this situation was. Then they stole information years and years because Kweepu wrote a book called, that's on our website, findnews.com, called Actual Facts or Actual Plagiarism, where they took, remember Chuck, me and you, all of us on a big live some years ago, and I presented the book that Kweepu wrote, and I went through some of the stuff they stole right from the nature books, paragraph by paragraph. So this is a whole lot that's being told. All right, that Mr. York, has in his career as leaders of various groups and been associated with many names and ideologies and indeed representation. To surmise, we at the end, I am not or have never been a follower or affiliate of either Mr. York or his movement. From my perspective as a secular-minded investigative journalist who has been affiliated for many years with the members of the Zulu Nation, another pedophile cult, as well as individuals who are members of the Nuwaupian movement pedophile cult. My motive for undertaking this book was to see justice prevail after learning about the conflicts York was having with the making authorities, which at the time appeared to be a clear-cut case of racial and religious bias against a group who I knew had been prevalent in New York some years earlier, blah, 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 blah. So he went into what he thought about it. Now, you want to say anything before we move on?
No, go ahead.
All right, now, after that, this is what prompted, hold on. This is what prompted because I want to get to that.
I can just get with the evidence. So newer information on the book.
Soon he shared the screen
from the East.
See it.
All right, it's a paperback edition. It's only $28.99. It is huge. And in the front of the book, this is my name up here. Okay, can you see it now?
No, sorry, you gotta share your screen.
Okay, I'm sharing mine. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Okay, here we go.
All right, so what he did was The Man of Many Faces is used the same book cover. All right, so now this book was written by the guy, which he says Taharka, Adafa, whatever the case was. This dude, once I contacted the author of the Man of Many Faces book, right, after he had to revise his book because he got faulty information. That's why the book was revised. I come in a few years later after the second revision, dropped what I wrote. I sent him all your stuff too. He got the original email like I got in the group. I sent him all of the books, the sites, the particular topics that you wrote on your website concerning Albert Nuwaupian. I hit him with all of that. I hit him with Afro Uno's, which is Johnny Eugene Brown's obituary. Hit him with all of that. Hit him with the videos or the audio of me talking to Afro Uno's widow. Hit him with all of that. And that made him get at Taharka. And this is why the dude ended up showing up in our group. So let me see if I can find that real quick, because I pulled all this stuff up. I want to be able to pull this up and keep it in order.
Okay.
All right, hold on. It's not that one. We got that out the way. All right, let's see. Because he came into the group with a whole bunch of anger because he was upset. So let me do it like this. He came in the group under pretending he was just wanting to learn more, but he was really trying to research and get stuff on us. This is why the book came out, because we beat him so bad and he got embarrassed from writing that faulty information and putting it in that book and embarrassed that man twice. He had to write his book, then rewrite it. Then he goes and write another book, and this mixed breed talking about his name is in the book, and he did an interview. All y'all did was come to our group and take all of the information we already sent to the man. He tried to act like they fixing something. But anyway, this is when he came in the group, and people got on him about the post delete. It's not a question, it's an opinionated statement. But what I would ask is, when did Dr. York get permission to use any of Afro Uno's names, twisting them and taking from his writings? Adalpha Taharka Nicole L. is the co-author of the book, The Man on the Many Faces, and in the book it says that one of Dr. York's names was Afro Uno, which the spelling was made incorrect on purpose. And Abanugu Ruakata, which is the spelling was made incorrect on purpose as well. What documentation did Dr. York have to use Afro Uno's names, and what documentation did the Nuwaupians and Dr. York get for stealing sections from all of Afro Uno's works? What documentation did the Nuwaupians get to put that picture of Afro Uno in that Nuwaupian bookstore and still spelled his name wrong on the picture? Which Quipu and Tanunet went to the bookstore about 2018, and they both filmed separately. Yeah. And they had Afro Uno picture up there with Yahweh being Yahweh, and all them people that York had disrespected for years, claiming that they was less than him and he was the best teacher and all that. They had Afro Uno that picture, the one off the obituary, right up there in the bookstore. And, right. And so it's like all the years they claimed arguing forth with Earl on them, they swore up and down that York brought Nuwaupian, and that Afro Uno was his student. And Prince York did an interview with an elder, rest in peace, who died, right? They did a whole 2-3 series on Prince's page. He's helping Prince, is guiding him, and he's telling a lie how Johnny Eugene Brown used to come and sit down with him, and he used to travel to listen to York teach. I'm like, how Afro Uno was already in his 40s by the time York started doing anything. Mm-hmm. You know, but all these lies they were saying, and so he got the elder to lie, and so this is what he came in the group. First, this how you catch him. Right? He first came in the group. So first of all, you deleted my question because you did not have an answer for it. It was a clear sign of weakness and a lack of knowledge on your part. Not to worry. I have hundreds of more in-depth questions to ask you in the weeks to come. You open a question and answer form, then delete the questions you are uncomfortable with and cannot answer. Anyway, to answer your question, there's no evidence that York has ever used Afro Uno's name. Lies. They've been using it since he's been in jail. Name or refer to himself as such in any of his publications. In the book of The Man of Many Faces, we cited the name misspelled Afro Uno as one of York's names, as many old followers of Noon Science in the UK, Europe, and Africa had believed York was Afro Uno. First of all, that makes no sense, because the books that were still being printed in physical form have the name written exactly the way it is. That's on PDF. Now that the books are not being printed no more, because Afro Uno passed, and then was a sister who was in the UK was printing those books for a couple of years, and then she stopped because Nuwaupian started making her feel like she was wrong for keeping the books produced. But I still got the original copies, and the name is spelled correctly. So I don't know what he means by the old followers thought that York was Afro-Unu. What they got to do with y'all misspelling the man's name wrong when the books still have his name spelled right to this day? So see, he's trying to justify misspelling the name and trying to throw you a curveball, which makes no sense. All right, which is why we placed the name at the beginning of the book to show that this was one of the names York was known by. He see how he just cut himself again, as the Dagger Squad say.
Yeah.
If he wasn't, that wasn't him, how you known by a name that wasn't yours? It makes no sense. But this is the lies that the followers of Elia tell, which is like you said, they just want to keep helping the cult leader to show that this is one of the names York was known by the members of the public. Secondly, it is public knowledge that York refers to himself as Amanubi Ruakata. Okay, cool, but guess what? Ruakata is not on the original 9-ball books. It's never spelt that way. That was something I pointed out before. So again, that's another pen pimping. Since the 1990s, like you established, Chuck, and has admitted that he was not the original Amanubi Ruakata. Remember, we kept beating the Nuwaupians till York wrote a letter and stated he was not the original Amanubi Ruakata. All right, but I'm finna dagger him in a minute right after this. Right, so let's go remember this. He was not the original. Before he said he was Amanubi, it was no such thing. There was another one. We never heard that. All of the books from in the 90s when he was on the land and he was dressing up as Amanubi Ruakata, when he was on the land and with the pharaoh clothes or the drawings, right? That's in the beginning of the Egyptian Book of the Dead or some of the Christism and Mohammedanism books right in the beginning. You see a drawing of him as Amanubi. You never see in there one of the Amanubi or the secondary Amanubi. He always made it appear that he was the one and only. And he always said, I came in the 60s as Amanubi Ruakata. He always said that. So what do you mean now you're not the original? See, because we was beating them so bad, all of us, I'm not taking the credit for that, all of us, me, you, Wujao, Anu, Kwipu, Tarnunet, even Garu himself was in on the beatings, but he hated himself for turning on his slave master. But that's all right. We still got the documents. You went against your own master teacher yourself, the master teacher, right? We got all of that. Right now, he said he revised the edition of the books, the Bible interpretation and explanation books. Number one, those books never was revised. What York did was he plagiarized them and broke them up into right knowledge series and started adding names in those books that were not in the BIAE in the 9-ball counts. He never revised those books. He just took from it, and that's how, like you said, that was his thing, escaping from Islam. He used those books to draw people in, is what he did. All right? As a student of Nuwaupu from the late 1960s, York naturally incorporated elements of the teaching into his various doctrines, which has been established on the video. Dr. York is Amanubi Ruakata, and Amanubi Ruakata is Afro-Unu by Nupu.org, which we already destroyed that group. See, he went over there following that bald-headed dude and that Pink Panther-looking clown that was over there on Sarnetta's show crying about how we was beating them and proved that Afro-Unu and York was not the same. They still teaching that. If you go on YouTube right now and go to Nupu or Nupu.org on YouTube, they got a video that says Afro-Unu and York is one and the same. And this is after and this is the book writer and everybody else knows that they not the same. And the Nuwaupians in the bookstore in Brooklyn also verified after me and Anouk went there and argued with Earl in person in 2015 in the bookstore for 3 hours about Afro-Unu was not the same and busting up they fake doctrine. They know that. Sakina was there. All of them was there filming us. and none of them put the footage out. It was about 10 of them filming us in their phones. Only me and Anoop put some of the footage up in our group. So they know we came there in 2015. They're gonna wait 3 years later or so to put the man picture in there after they went online, which we got all of them in our Noon group, swearing to God that Afro Uno was a myth. We made him up. Johnny Eugene Brown could have been anybody. Then y'all steal a man's life. After York stole his writing, steal his life, steal his stuff, remix it, then put the man picture in the store and act like y'all didn't do none of that. Alright? Now according to this the dude, now this the guy who done wrote on York 3 times, clarifying now that York and Afro Uno's not the same and that York rock Nuwaupian, correct? Alright? Which, by Nupu.org, which provided numerous examples of what Noon Science or Nuwaupian was being taught by York throughout his 3 schools of religion, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity over a 35-year period, which contradicts the notion that the Nuwaupians only recently began using Noon teachings. That's a lie. It was because they was using some of it in the actual facts. What they was the way I made videos on that where that's why I was writing your question like, what are you doing? If you did this, why is the actual facts doing? That's why me and him kept going back in my writings, and he just never would really answer certain stuff. All right, so we coming to it. So, which contradicts the notion that the Nuwaupians only recently began using Noon teaching. Recently, York purposely spelled the title Amanu Rakpata differently to differentiate himself from the original teacher of Nuwaupian. See, here we go with the foolishness. York could not have stolen Afro Uno's teaching if he was also a student of Nuwaupian since the 60s, which has been verified by early followers of York's movement. The proof or documentation that York was a student of Nuwaupian since the 60s is based on the fact that he released a version of the Bible interpretation explanation booklets in the late 60s. Again, that never happened. The same way they kept telling lies, York kept talking about a book called Get From Behind the Nine Ball. There's no such book. There's no such book. It's always been the 9 ball counts. Alright? The fact that the Nuwaupians placed a large portrait of Johnny Eugene Brown, see, who y'all say was Afro Uno, on the wall of their temple shows that they are not trying to hide who Afro Uno was. Yeah, years after we've been beating them from 2014 to 2018 is when that's when they put all this stuff out. They couldn't hide it because we was making too much noise about it. That's why. They was trying to quiet the firestorm. It only made it worse. So by making the video in which you showed the portrait of Johnny Eugene Brown, right, this is Quipo and Tanu Net's video he talking about, in the Nuwaupian building, you inadvertently contradict yourself without realizing it. Now in regards to the true identity of Afro Uno and Amanu Rakpata, you have no real evidence which proves that Johnny Eugene Brown is either of these people other than the words of his obituary, which also state that he did not begin writing until 1973, which means he could not have been Amanu Rakpata, the author of either the Bible Interpretation Explanation Book 1 and 2, the 9 ball count, which were both released before he began writing. Furthermore, on the audio recording of Introduction to Nature, Mr. Johnny Eugene Brown admits in his own voice, out of his own mouth, that he was Nubi Ripu, one of the representatives of Afro Uno, in which he was basically speaking in the second person. But I'm finna dag all of this. In which he stated the following: listen to reason, the reading of this correct information is Nubi Ripu, and I am one of the chief representatives of Afro Uno. What they don't understand is Ripu is the sun god. That's the spirit talking. Nubi is the human, and it's short for Amanubi. So the spirit is talking here when you talk about Ripu. And if you look into Noon books, Ripu is the name of the sun and sun god. So that was who Afro Uno was allowing to write through him at this point. The sun god is the representative of Nubi, because he also, spirits also participate in writings. This anybody knows that even York said he was not the author of how that saying went. Chuck, when York when he was talking about the pen and he could not do the works of it by himself, and it was the masters that guide my pen. Yeah, that. Right. Same difference. Different way of saying the same thing. So Nubi is the human. Repu is the sun god or the spirit god. That's all that was. And I am not, he said, I'm one of the chief representatives here of Afro Uno. It's not saying that Afro Uno is he telling you I'm the spirit god that represent the flesh man called Afro Uno. Nupu and Noon, and for the benefit of the listening audience, Nubi, Repu is spelled Nubii and Repu REPOO. Introduction to Nature, Nubi Repu 1996. And there's no different than saying I'm in Nubi Rakata. Rakapata is the old word for the sun god. Repu is a revolved version of that. Nubi, I'm in Nubi, Rakapata, Repu. That's all it is. That's all that was. It was nothing deep about that. But because they want to play games, what they did. Alright, so now so how could Johnny Eugene, be Nubi Repu, one of the representatives of Afro Uno, and be Afro Uno at the same time? Please explain. The same way York claimed to be the human and Melchizedek at the same time. Or he could be this and he's Yanun at the same time. You see the dumbness that they play? So when you bring it the same logic, if I'm using that as logic, that now they don't understand it when somebody else does it. But here's the dagger right here. So we can destroy all things. Because this is what I wanted to get at. Alright, so this, once again, this is the book that they wrote, and they got me and Chuck and Unc, and they even got Quipu name, and they got a list of our names.
They really wanted to sell a book, so they put up everybody.
Right. They said somebody gonna make these names gonna make the book sell. Alright, so this is the book again, and they so religious because lightning from the east is in the Bible when it says talk about Jesus said the Son of Man will shine from the east unto the west. And York was not born in the east. He was born in Boston. Y'all need to stop this foolishness. We got the birth certificates. Nuwaupianism.com has already destroyed that. York's own brother, Obar, even said York was born in the hospital over here. What are y'all talking about? Then you flip it then first the lie was Sudan, but we know it was Boston. Then y'all go to Ghana. Like, what are y'all talking about? So this,
they're a mess.
Right, so he got 3 birthplaces. It's incredible with the foolishness. So this is the book. They threw Prodigy name on there because Prodigy spoke on York and he read the Leviathan scrolls, which that's really not York's work. York just did research and spoke about stuff that nowadays, if you read that book and Google it, you'll see that York didn't give you nothing that wasn't out there. We just didn't have the connection to that. All that stuff in the year 2001 spec and the Leviathan books and all that Illuminati stuff, it's there. But we didn't know no better, so we assumed York was just giving us some high octane. He was giving us water and some spoiled milk. This foolishness. All right, so let me dagger him real quick. So this book right here, after we just read all this niggatry, all right, this is this one of my favorite book that they ever put out, right? Called Pahasad, The Harvest. I think this came out like 2 years ago, and I beat them every time they keep bringing this topic up. Now we go into the book, right? And right in the book, it clearly says, 171, I, Baba Yanun, Rich Against from Rich, was sent to warn you all of all these days, right? The Pleiadians and Reptilians know I am here. They saw, as of the year 2000 AD, what I began to teach was unlike any other black leader. 174. So they watched and waited to see if it was Wu Sabat. 175. They knew about what? Nuwaupu of what? Afro Uno. He was one, yeah, he did not have all the answers, which is a lie, because York been stealing this man's stuff since day one. So it's right here in their own book. Afro Uno was credited with being the one that brought Nuwaupu. So why is this dummy Tahaka talking about York was the real Amanubi, then so he wasn't original. York had to come out and tell y'all that because we was pushing the issue. That's the reason. So the whole point is, I embarrassed Taharka. I embarrassed him with Christian Jefferson by him putting out that book, and he had to revise the book because these clowns gave him misinformation, and he came into our group pretending, right? And so that's why we had to catch him, regardless of whether you were an ex-Nuwaupian, you may not have been a Tarnoon war, so that's good enough for me. So we went into that. We just was showing him different things, the gospel, the unknown. This is all religion. But he came in the group because he was trying to dig up dirt on us, and we straight destroyed him. So right here, look how he tell a lie. This is why I pull this up. This is why. Him and Queeper was going back and forth, right? And he said right here, Adalpha Taharka Nicole L, right, who wrote the book, right? I just want to be sure. I want y'all to see this.
What's her name?
Hold on, this is his name, Taharka. Because I want him to see that. Because he was, this what a lot of these followers of York do, is they come out and they tell these lies. Let me see. Okay, right here, I just want to point his name out. Alright, hold on. Alright, you see right here, edited by Adalpha Taharka Ning Marud Nicole L, right? You see that, right? Right, now look what he told Queeper, right, when he was getting beat. He says, remember this is 2 years ago, right? See this at Thursday, October the 4th, 2018. Look what he said. I am not part of the Nuwaupian movement, nor do I represent them, so that question has nothing to do with me, which is a lie. The Christian Jefferson just said that 2 of my researchers are followers of York, right? But he came in the group trying to pretend like he was a researcher, and Queeper went into his page and said, "You're lying, Adalpha Taharka L," and she put all these pictures out of his off of his Facebook page. He go Enoch Adalpha, which York had in his publications, the Makti, right? They go to the book right here. All this is on this man's page. The man that made it faces, all of this. See, Adalpha Taharka Nicole L. That's again, this is just showing you he was lying. This Nuwaupian pictures drawn. The man that made it face, all this stuff is right on his page. I didn't even have to come in and do anything. Queeper them dagging him by himself. So she got him with lying. So, and also we got into, it's another group too called UJTV, had put out some information. They kept coming on our videos, and we did some videos responding to them and smoked their boots, and all of them got in contact with this guy, Taharka, and that's why he came into the group with a grudge. So all I wanted to do was basically, like I said, get with Chuck. Like I said, this wasn't really that big deal, and just explain to Sabians, this is why this book came. Because he put out false information, just like y'all was. All this go back to York. The liar, the primary liar, the source of the lie is why these books are still coming out and people are still spreading this lie after we've spent years from 2014 to now telling y'all were wrong. And y'all do not want to listen to reason. Y'all want to continue spreading lies. And this mixed breed is just trying to make a name for itself at real black people's expense. He's not a Nuwaupian. There's no such thing as Nuwaupian as far as a human being. That's not what that is. York not knowing where that stuff came from is why he put out false information too. And y'all are in the image and likeness of him. So I don't have no, reason to debate any of y'all about something we all know. The truth of the matter is, the man is right here. Y'all already put this out. This how I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave this up here. I keep doing this every now and then. Right here, number 175. They knew about Nuwaupu of Afro-Ulu. Spelled his name wrong, but we know that wasn't York. York never ever claimed nobody else but him was Amanubi Rakpata. So I'm done on that. Chuck, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you pretty much cleared all that up. Like anyone going over it pretty much get an idea. Well, this is where it all stems from, and you know, anyone can just go through and look at my website, nuwaupianism.com, and then make a comparison. And you see, there's no argument. You know, we've dealt with this stuff year after year after year, hours. I mean, up into 8 hours of arguing, back and forth, documentation, years of this stuff. And here we are again, where they're trying to keep it alive. I'm not going to be talking about this stuff for the rest of my life. You know, I do have a life, so I'm not, they may not have one, because as a cult member, you know, their life is centered around the cult. But like I said, we have more than enough documentation online, YouTube, my YouTube channel, and elsewhere, your channel as well, where this stuff is well preserved, and all anyone has to do is get some popcorn and just sit back, throw your feet up, and listen, and take notes, and you'll see the facts and the reality of it. So, you know, anything that's significant that they're coming with that's new, then I'll look at it and see if it's worthwhile, or if it's even worth entertaining and taking the time to deal with. But as it stands, you know, I put my website pretty much deals with enough to where it leaves no room for doubt. Just like it happened in the court, it left no room for doubt. So just suck it up, deal with it, and continue on.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they still making videos up to date. I'm like, y'all dudes are sick. Like,
yeah, the mini Monday morning quarterback.
There you go. Y'all have do something new, which is debunk the website. Get something for us to turn and look at, because that's the only way you're gonna get a real response. We just only responding to this because it's a book full of foolishness, and the real slanderers is the people that's promoting the book. Ain't nobody got time to be lying on York. For what? I ain't got no reason to lie on York. I didn't even start dissing York based upon the work that Chuckman was doing, because Chuck, I didn't run into y'all until like late 2014 once, but I had already been seeing cracks in York's armor from 2010. That's why I put in the letter, I stopped being a Nuwaupian in 2010, because the information that was coming out was contradicting the nature books, and I started seeing all these other things. Plus, I wrote him a lot, and he wrote me back. And so I had
you documented. You got the letters to prove it. So hey,
yeah, they were scared. None of them got letters. They wrote York. They was worshiping. I seen through the veil and said, let me ask him these questions. I just found an old letter I wrote him the other day. I may put it out one day just to mess with him, let him know how I wrote him. I wrote him sitting, me and you, from teacher to used to be student, and then I started saying a certain thing like, "Yo, what's good?" And he could never answer these things because I knew he couldn't. And that's when I said at 2010 I was done. And then I started my studying in about 2013 to 2014. I was ready, and that's when I came back to Facebook, and we just started bludgeoning everybody that was full of foolishness. And that's why they hate me to this day. Yeah, start bludgeoning them with the hammer of Thor. And that's why they hate me. I earned my hate, but I didn't do this for no clout. I don't get paid for this. I don't know how many times they call people agents for doing the right thing. That's the craziest thing. Hey, yo, I don't get paid for this. This is trying to help liberate people. Only criminals get paid for doing things right or wrong, because it all, because of what it does, it hurts people. But yeah, that was about it. I just want to make sure they seen your site. And I think, like you said, there's really nothing else to do. Whenever they feel like they can do something that's worth my time, I respond. But Earl and Garu need to just go and get themselves mentally checked into a hospital. I don't know why you want to keep trying to battle somebody when the topic's been dead and you've been beat multiple times online. I don't understand that. Who keeps begging Your teacher already supported everything we've been saying since 2014. Afro brought Nuwaupian. This dude is so insane. He's using the symbols from our books on his page, but you worship yours and talk against Afro, but you using Afro stuff as if you produced them. So that means something is wrong with you. I would derive no pleasure out of resurrecting his nasty flesh and going into something already is over. We moving on. Like we moving on, Chuck, but we just come back every now and then just to let y'all know. Nobody got time for that. So I'm good. I had my fun as far as that. I ain't got nothing else to say. What else on you, Chuck? You want to take it out?
I got some things I gotta take care of.
Alright, so that's it. I'll just holler at you later then.
I appreciate it, brother.
You too, Drew.
White boy.
Next question.
I got you, white boy.
I showed these niggas.
You're white boy.
I don't even know
You
either.
didn't show
white
us anything, man. You
Because
Nigga, hey Sean, you
tell-
just cussed this nigga out and get him off that because he
for modern
that's what he doing.
teachings. That's what you guys fail at.
This nigga is supporting pedophiles.
You
He
can't
never
say
met the nigga.
what I just
He never met Malachi York, and all he doing is protecting this nigga.
Next question.
Hey,
He said, all right, hold on. Hey, Sean, watch this. Ask that nigga, did you ever meet Malachi York? You ever met Malachi York, yo?
Next question.
You ever met Malachi York, yes or no?
Next question,
Right,
crackhead.
I bet you won't answer. I bet you won't answer that, though.
Don't debate crackheads. Next
Yeah,
question.
I know, I bet you won't answer.
hey, Sean.
Yes, sir.
Okay, based on what you've been able to detect, clearly the reference to Orion or Sahu, whatever. First of all, the terminology that's used in reference to Orion,
Yeah.
that's coming from New York. That's not
Yep.
coming from being substantial. That's coming from York. He doesn't want to admit that his primary source on that is being York because he
Look.
can't find it in the text.
Right. So we would have to look at the glyphs. Now, in order to look at the glyphs and
You
come up
ain't
with
a master of the glyphs. You're not a master of the glyphs.
Hold on, Sean, you're doing too much, bro. You're
I'm
doing
trying
too,
to tell you.
you're doing too much, bro. Listen, does any of the text says Orion? Any of them say Orion?
Sa. It says Sa. That's Orion. What does Sa
Sa.
mean?
Sa has so many different meanings. It can't just mean Orion.
I'm saying, no. I'm saying,
It can
When
mean
you prove
dependent.
that,
hold on.